Good morning, Achievers. How you all doing? Ajit Sidhu here. It's a beautiful frosty day today. Today I want to talk about something that is so important to achieving anything that we want in life. It could be relationships, it could be bonding with our children, it could be making money through sales. This is probably the second most important thing in life. The first is breathing. You should know how to breathe, the techniques that you use to breathe. There's a whole book that I've read on breathing and how so many different people have got some kind of superpower through their breath. So that's the number one most powerful thing that everyone should know, and I might do a video about that. But this one is about the art of communication. It's the art of communication, not the science. It's the science of communication. There's always in any topic an art and a science. Now the science of communication is the body language and the words that we use and that kind of thing. But the thing is, this one is the art. The art is something that we should know. The art is usually the foundation. You can teach the science to many people. It's more like a procedure or policies, but the actual art is where you get the difference in people. And knowing how we should be and communicate, you can not manipulate, I don't like that word, you can mold it for your own benefit. So with the art of communication, I've actually created a customer service, world-class customer service, or actually world-class guest services course. I've actually created that, and we implement it in our nursery. It's absolutely amazing. It's this. I've studied Disney, Virgin, Starbucks, Costa Coffee, Hilton for the past 10 years. I've actually studied the methods that they used, and I've compiled it and created it along with my own experiences, and that is what we actually use in our nursery. But the one little module in there is the art of communication. Now the art of communication, this is huge. Where if you want to build relationships, if you want to make friends, the art of communication, communicating, you can either make friends or break up with friends. You can make a relationship or break up a relationship. The way we do our communication is so important. And I believe there's 4 parts to this. Now the first part to the art of communication is active listening and active responding. Everyone listens. At the moment you're listening to me, but something might resonate as I'm speaking, and you will stop, and your brain will start formulating and thinking about things. And when you're thinking about things, you're missing the next part. That's not active listening. Active listening is something that we need to practice on a constant basis. And when we communicate with someone, and this happens in relationships quite a lot, when you're communicating with your partner or your friend and something resonates well and you want to respond to that a part, we miss everything else. We wait until there's a break. We wait and we think, when is this person going to stop talking so I can actually tell them the magical stuff that's in my head and I can let them know what I thought about that. And what tends to happen is we, especially guys, interrupt the ladies, and a week or 2 pass and the ladies will say to the guys, you don't listen to me. And that's where that comes from. Because us men, this is from Men Are From Mars and Women Are From Venus. And yes, I have read that book, it's fantastic. Our ancestral DNA is we are problem solvers. We want to solve the problem there and then. So if there's a situation where the lady that's from Venus has come along and decided to offload their emotion and discuss, and all they want is someone to actively listen. But what we do is we think, how can I solve this problem? Which screwdriver shall I use to actually just go and fix this? When we do that, our active listening skills go, we're not doing active listening. We're actually breaking that communication, and that causes problems. So we have to actively listen. We have to listen to the person to the end, and then say, how should I respond to this? Because once we're in that position that we can actively respond, then it's so much better. You've actually figured out the entire and listened to the entire conversation, the entire situation, and then you can formulate a plan rather than formulating a plan right at the beginning. So active listening and active responding is crucial to the art of communication. The second thing is our emotions when we're having the conversation. If we're in a poor state and we decide to have a conversation, you're going to get poor results. You're going to be impatient. You're going to respond in a way that you're going to regret later. But if we're in a peak state, like yesterday's video about the peak state that we need to be when we're making a decision, if you're in a peak state, then the conversation, those are the conversations that when you look back, you think, oh God, I love that guy or I love that girl. We just bonded. We bond. There was something that we gelled. There was a rapport. Oh, I can't wait to see that person again. It's just because our emotions, we were in a peak state. And when we're in a peak state, we can actively listen more. And we naturally start doing the active listening and the art of communication. The third thing that we need to always do before any conversation is know your outcome. Know what the outcome of the conversation is. And again, this is from men are from Mars, women are from Venus, but then also when it comes to communicating with your children, as parents, we know that we always have an outcome, and the way we communicate and get our children to the outcome, we use different strategies. Same thing when it comes to adults. And I say this over and over and over again. We're just big kids. We're big kids with layer upon layer upon layer of world, like an onion. We just have to remember how to communicate in the most basic manner, and it's just knowing the outcome. Once you know the outcome, got your emotion correct, and you want to have this conversation rather than getting in there and think, I'm going to have this conversation, I'm going to I just feel like just releasing everything. It's more like, I'm going to have this conversation, this is going to be great. That, you're going to have two different conversations completely. And also, when you're having the conversation, you're actively listening and actively responding. Those three things are crucial. And the fourth thing to this art of the communication is you need to understand the person's feelings and experience. You really need to understand the feeling and the experience that the person's going through. There's a quick story about a gentleman that was reading in the tube. He was in the train, he was reading his newspaper, and it was quite a busy carriage, and all of a sudden a father walked in with his three boys, and the three boys were aged 12, 10, and 8. And the father sat down and he just kind of looked on the floor, and the children started run riot in the carriage and start pushing each other and shouting and screaming, and he could see that every single person in that carriage was getting annoyed by the situation, the circumstances. They could see the father not responding. Now this gentleman who was holding the newspaper decided that he'll go and speak to the father and let him know how he feels about this situation. He went, excuse me, do you mind? We're all relaxing here, having a peaceful time, and your children are disturbing everyone here. And the father looked up and he goes, oh, geez, I'm so sorry. I'm really, really sorry. We just come back from the hospital. They've just lost their mother, and they don't know how to respond to it. To be honest, I don't know how to respond to it either. Now the gentleman who had this whole communication of in a poor state and decided to convey his message softened up. He realized that this experience that the gentleman was having was a really bad experience. He sat down next to him. He put his hand on his knee and he said, how can I help? Completely different communication all of a sudden, just because that person knew and was compassionate about the gentleman's experience. So those are the 4 keys to the art of communication. There's obviously many more, but these are the 4 that will change everything. So the first one is active listening and responding. The second one is our emotions when we have a conversation. The third one is know your outcome, what you want from this conversation, and don't divert from that conversation. It's so important you don't divert from that conversation, because when you do, that's when everything else comes about. All the past scenarios that you've been dragging along but hiding, you decide to say, look at this, but you did this and you did this, and oh, I'll grab this out of the bag, you did this as well. That happens just because you've forgotten the outcome that you wanted. And the 4th thing is understanding the person's situation and the experience. But the final thing that I just want to finish off with is those 4 things that we can use. We should actually start the entire communication with ourselves first. We should not expect the world to change. We should not expect everyone else to be listening to this or knowing that they should have active listening. They're knowing that there should be an emotional peak state. On top of that, knowing the outcome, they should know what I want to happen. And on top of that, they should understand my feelings. No, that's not how it starts. How it starts, every communication starts with listening to yourself. Listening to the questions that are going on in your head. Because every conversation you have in your head starts off with a question. Now, is that question a peak state or a poor state? If it's a peak empowering question, then you'll get a peak empowering response. So you've done your active listening, you've done your active listening, and you're in a peak emotional state now. And then you want to formulate an outcome. And you formulate the outcome from this. What do you actually want? Even when you feel like giving up, same thing, you're communicating in your head. Now, what do you want? You don't want to give up. You want to know how you can overcome this obstacle. How can you overcome this obstacle? The brain says, Google it. Go on YouTube, figure it out. And then the action that you take is that. So the communication, the art of communication starts with yourself. And obviously you know your experiences that you have, how you deal with your experience. One person might say to you, one person might say something to you that when they say it, it's like in a friendly way. And you're smiling. Ah, that's funny, that's cool. But the same words that are used or the same way that it's used with someone that you don't like, all of a sudden becomes an insult. And bad words are a key thing here. If a friend says a bad word to you, then you just think, that's funny, haha. But then if a person that you don't really like or respond says the same thing, then you're like, what did you say to me? That is completely the communication that you have in your head. So start off with the communication that you have through the active listening, active response in your head. Know your outcome, get into a peak state, and the experience that you're having, try to control that experience within your head, and then communicate with someone else. Then make the sale. Then speak to your partner. Because when you do that, what you get is completely different. And we are in control of the outcome because we know. Keep achieving, achievers. Keep moving forward. Spread the love. Add value to people's lives. And I'll see you soon. Take care. Bye.